Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.
Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. My guest today is a truly incredible person. Few people have suffered at Israeli hands the way he's personally suffered. And yet he's committed to work for the peace, security, harmony, freedom and rights of both the Israeli and the Palestinian people. In January 2009, an Israeli tank fired on his house in Jabbalia, northern Gaza, killing 3 of his daughters and his niece in front of his eyes. At the time, he was talking on television and effectively broadcast their deaths. Then last month, October 2023, again in Jabbalia, northern Gaza, Israeli airstrikes killed 25 members of his family. But it hasn't changed his thinking. If anything, he's even more determined to follow his mission for the peace, harmony, equality, as well as the freedom and rights of both the Israeli and the Palestinian people. He's written about this eloquently in his book. It's called I Shall Not Hate, A Gaza Doctor's Journey on the Road to Peace and Human Dignity. Joining me now from Toronto in Canada, where he's Professor of Global Health at the university, to talk about his life, both the trauma and tragedy he's experienced, as well as the work to which he is committed, is Dr. Izzeldin Abuelaish. Dr. Abuelaish, I want to start with the terrible tragedies you've suffered, which, far from making you bitter, have given you the determination to work for peace, harmony, equality, freedom and rights of both the Palestinian and Israeli people. After talking about your tragedies, I'll come to what you see as your mission. First, in January 2009, when you were living in Jabbalia in northern Gaza, an Israeli tank fired at your home, killing 3 of your daughters and your niece in front of your eyes. At the time, you were talking on television and you ended up effectively broadcasting your daughter's death. You very kindly given me permission to start this interview by talking about that traumatic tragedy, and I'm very grateful to you for that. Can you tell the audience what happened on that dreadful day, the 16th of January, 2009?
Thank you so much. What happened January 16, 2009 is part of a long-term life. This is my life, and it's part of it. My life as a Palestinian refugee who was born, lived, and raised in Jabbalia refugee camp, of parents who are refugees, grandparents who are refugees, and that's important. Sometimes we need to analyze these concepts. We hear it in this world. What do we mean by a refugee? A refugee is someone, a human being, who has a place, a home, a land, dignity, and overnight deprived of all of this and becomes naked in this world. So I was born just to face the suffering, and my life is full of challenges. My life was a war. And when we speak about war, war is not the soldier who is going to kill and to be killed. War is about the human beings, the innocent people. So on 16th of January, where the war or the raid, the aggression against the Palestinians started the 27th of December 2008. I was with my children. We are living in peace in spite of all the shelling, the situation, the trauma, and the continuous trauma that is continuing till now for the Palestinian people. A tank shell bombarded my house. Twice. I didn't believe it because shelling was everywhere, indiscriminate shelling. I didn't believe it till I went to my daughter's room after I saw the dust, the smoke. I went inside. Where is Bisan? Where is Mayar? Where is Aya? Because for 3 weeks we're under a threat, existential threat. You don't know who will be next. As these days, Palestinian people are moving coffins. They are moving graves, waiting who will be in line. And nothing is more painful than being uncertain about what will be next, under fear, under threat, and waiting what will happen. So I didn't believe it. When I went inside the room, I want to see, where is my daughter Bisan? Where is my daughter Mayar, Aya, my niece Noor, Shada? I don't want anyone to see what is happening. They were decapitated. They became shattered as parts. Their brains spreading everywhere in the walls, in a pool of blood. At that moment, I lost faith in humanity because the world is watching what is happening sometimes and most of the time with other people who are watching, and they are supposed to take action. As a medical doctor, and that's what I practice. When I see a bleeding patient, I have to rush to stop the bleeding, not to watch it. We have a moral, ethical, and human responsibility when we see harm to take action. Bisan, that beautiful, lovely daughter, who was 21 years old, about to graduate from the university, who took the role of her mother after her mother passed away just 4 months before. Their mother passed away 16th of September 2008. At the same time, 4:45 p.m., she took the responsibility. She was not only my daughter, she was my treasure, she was my manager, she was my friend, my advisor, that I sent to be scams. Her sister Mayar, who planned to be a medical doctor, I was happy at least she will follow my path as a medical doctor, the human path. Then Aya, who planned to be a lawyer or a journalist, to be the voice of the voiceless, and my niece Noor, who was 17, she planned to be a teacher. For nothing they did, and they were not, as sometimes the myths and the lies, to be used the human shields. No one can accept his children or his loved ones to be human shields. They did nothing, and there is no reason to justify the killing of any human being.
And the amazing thing is that this happened exactly 4 months after the death of your wife. As you said,
Yes.
Your wife died at 4:45 p.m. on the 16th of September 2008. And this dreadful killing of your 3 daughters and niece happened at 4:45 on the 16th of January 2009. And at that time, when your daughters were killed, you were actually talking on Israeli television. I believe it was Channel 10. And your cries had a huge impact at the time. Even the interviewer who was talking to you had to put down the phone to go and calm himself and recover. Tragedy has befallen you in a terrible, terrible way. And the amazing, horrible thing is it happened again just a month ago in October. 14 years after 2009, in October 2023, I gather you lost 25 members of your family when Israeli airstrikes hit Jabbalia.
And that's, we say never again, never again. Are we going to learn the lessons? Because it didn't happen only 23 for me. It continued. We have been living under fire, under war. 2008, 2012, 2014, 2018, 2021, 2022, and now 2023. As Einstein said, insanity is repeat doing the same thing and we expect different result. Did we realize, and always I used to call, war will never put an end. Military means will never put an end. The war and the bullet is the weapon of the weak. It only leads to increase the bloodshed, to widen the gap, more suffering, more pain, more violence, and most important, more extremism. So that's what happened when I was watching Al Jazeera, and to see that they attacked, that they bombarded my sister's house, and then to follow with the news, and to see my nephews, my nieces, 25 members of them, that they did nothing. They were full of plans, of hopes. One niece, she graduated from the School of Medicine. She was supposed to start her residency soon. Her sister, who is architect engineer, her brother, who was a physiotherapist, my sister's daughter, my niece, with her husband and 4 children. And my niece, she named her daughter after my daughter Aya, because we want to carry the names, to keep them alive. Life, why the children? Because I believe children, they are the life. They are the future. They are the hope. They are the beauty of life. Killing will never put an end.
Can I ask you this, doctor? You have suffered as very, very few people have suffered in their lives. Where do you get the courage and the strength to cope with these dreadful tragedies? The audience, as they hear you talk about them, will find it difficult to hear. Yet you've had to live through this. Where do you get the strength for that?
Because we as Palestinian people, we have been tested the whole of our life. From my early childhood, no one has been tested as we are tested as Palestinians. And I get this strength from my faith. My faith is very helpful. Not to give up, not to forget. Number 2, my life experience. It's not the only tragedy that I faced. I faced as a child, born and raised in Jabbalia refugee camp, the teeming poverty, the deprivation, the suffering. We were living until now. We are fighting just to survive. We are not living because we want to fight. We are fighting just to survive the moment. My life experience and what I experienced, and as you know, the hit or the challenge that doesn't strengthen you will never weaken you. So we became strong, and always we expect the war, so we have to be prepared for that. And my education is vital. Education is the light which guides us in times of darkness. And also my profession as a medical doctor. If a patient dies, I'm not going to stay there. I have to move to the next patient and to learn why the first patient died and what can I do to prevent any more deaths. And even my faith taught me the priority in life is for the living. We want to give life. Those who are dead, we have to remember them and their holy souls and noble blood not to be wasted, to keep them in our memory.
The amazing thing, Dr. Abuelaish, is that the tragedies you've suffered have given you a commitment to work for a mission. I'll come to that mission in a moment's time. But first, let me talk to you a little about your life. You were, as you said, born and brought up in Jabbalia. You lived there for years. What was Jabbalia like before Israel virtually destroyed it and reduced it to rubble last month? What was Jabbalia like as a young child growing up there?
Jabbalia camp, it's one of the largest camps in the Palestinian diaspora for the refugees. All of them are refugees who were expelled from their homeland and to come to Jabbalia camp. So when you see it, from being with dignity, dignified people, they became refugees waiting for a humanitarian aids and under the suffering. And I remember it till now. I see it. Children, they never tasted their childhood. For me, I never tasted it. Even till now, the Palestinian children who are there, when you ask, you have children or anyone with children, they ask them, what do you want to be in the future? The Palestinian children now, when you ask them, what do you want when you grow up? They will say, we are not allowed to grow up. We have to live life when we are children. This is man-made suffering. And what can we do to prevent it?
It's truly, truly tragic and heartbreaking that children never have a childhood. From little children, they are forced to be adults. Now, you chose to be a doctor, and I gather you are the first Palestinian doctor to work in an Israeli hospital. What was that experience like, and what did it teach you about the Israeli people?
Yeah, it's important, you know, when we speak about medicine, and you go to any place in Canada, if you go to any hospital here, the patients are coming from different backgrounds, different names, different ethnicities. And medicine, as I believe in it, with my mission, medicine, it's a human. We are dealing with a human, with the people that we want them to recover and to be healed. Medicine and health for me are a human equalizer, stabilizer, socializer, and harmonizer, and destabilizer. When we treat all of the patients who are coming from different backgrounds, we don't treat them based on their name, ethnicity, religion, or background. It's about the only difference between them is the diagnosis and the disease. So we treat them equally. We treat them with dignity, with the privacy, with respect. So at the hospital, all of them are equal. Why? When they step outside the hospital, immediately we treat them differently. So I can say to you, can you differentiate between the cry of the newborn baby, Indian, Canadian, Palestinian, American, or anyone? You can't differentiate between the cry of the newborn baby. It's a cry of life. It's a cry of hope. They are born equal. But once they step outside, they are the discrimination, the racism starts to be implemented.
Are you saying, Dr. Abuelaish, that the Israeli people you worked with as colleagues, doctors and nurses, were very different inside the hospital, and their behavior and attitude was very different outside the hospital?
No, I am not talking about the doctors. I'm talking about the patients and even sometimes the health professionals. Our mission, our values should cross the barriers of the hospital. So that's what we need. I did it because I believe in it. This is one thing. And the second, I want my Israeli colleagues to know that we can live together. We can survive when we are free, when we are equal, when we respect each other. And that's important, that there is no difference between each other, between us. So I want them to see who is the Palestinian and to know who are the Palestinians, because most of the problems, they come from ignorance, from arrogance, and from greed. Once I am ignorant, our enemy is our ignorance of who we are and who are others.
I understand. In fact, on the Piers Morgan show, you spoke about how you deliberately sent your daughters to peace camps with Israeli children. Tell me, what prompted you to do this, and what were you hoping your daughters would gain from this experience?
Yeah. When I received the phone call from friends that there is a camp for only girls, I said, I found it. It's only girls who can make it, because most of the time, men, who is waging war? Men are waging war. But we want to see women who are involved in peace, in decision-making, in participation. Give me in the history of our world 5 women who were behind wars. You can't find 5 women, but most of the wars are waged by men. So I said, I found it. I want my daughter. And later on, I send my 2 other daughters. I want them to send them to know each other, to learn from each other, and to communicate with others, to overcome the ignorance. I believed in that, and that's why I supported. I learned from my daughter, Bisan, when I sent her, and she wrote afterwards, I found how similar are we. Our children, they find out how similar the commonalities between us as a human. And she said at that time, she learned it. To meet violence with violence doesn't solve any problem. There is an alternative way. So I learned from her, and that's what we need to listen to our children, in particular, our daughters, our sisters, our mothers, our aunts.
Against this background, Dr. Abuelaish, let's talk about what you have often said is your mission, your determination to work for peace, harmony, equality, but also for freedom and rights for both. And this is very important for both Palestinian and Israeli people. Tell me more about this, because it is a mission now for you.
Yeah, it's a mission for me, because when we speak about peace, it's important. Sometimes we use this word peace. And do we live now in more peaceful world or less peaceful? I can say to you, we are not living in a peaceful world. The fear is endemic around our world. The incitement, the environment is polluted with fear and anger and hatred. So that's why, and when we speak about peace, what is peace? Peace is not just the word we are talking about it. And we see the word peace is fading, becoming far away from us. Peace, I say it, it's a way of life. You live it, you believe in it. And peace is a relationship within and then between us and within the environment in which we live, even between us and the earth on which we live. Do we have peace with our earth? We did harm to our earth. So there are certain means. It's important. There are certain means. Peace is the goal. And the means to achieve the goal, number one, freedom, equality, justice, respect of the human rights, and life for all, and the dignity for all. Once we have justice, equality, freedom, dignity, and rights for all, peace will be a consequence. So we need to advocate for justice, for freedom, for equality, for rights for all, and dignity for all. Then we will live in peace. And to understand that my peace, my dignity, my freedom, I see it through yours, peace, dignity, and freedom.
On the Piers Morgan show, you repeatedly described Palestinians and Israelis as conjoined twins. There can't be many people in either community who hold that view. Let me ask you, after what happened in the last 50 days, over 15,000 people have been killed, over 36,000 have been injured, vast swathes of Gaza has been reduced to rubble, Jabbalia has been virtually destroyed. Is it still your view that Israelis and Palestinians are conjoined twins?
I will say to you, as you mentioned about the Jabbalia camp and the Gaza Strip, it was described before as a hell. Now it's a ghost. I would love immediate after the end of the war to go to visit and to see the Gaza Strip. It's not, the people are not the people, and the streets are not the streets. It's completely, it became a ghost now. But I fully believe that the Palestinian people are able, as before 94, before the Oslo Agreement, Palestinians were fighting during what we call it the first intifada, children with the stones. Palestinian people are people with determination, with hope, and they are most resilient. And after the Oslo Agreement, they started to throw the Israelis with cactus, with olive branches and the flowers. But we need to change the context that in which we live in this current situation, and to change it, instead of being occupier and occupied, oppressor and oppressed, equal and equal, where the conjoined twins can live and survive, not in fighting, not in conflict, but as you mentioned, with dignity and the freedom. And that's the guarantee for that. Even I go beyond that. Palestinians and Israelis, we both live and ride one boat, and we must reach the shore peacefully.
I hear you say very eloquently, Dr. Abuelaish, that in your eyes, despite all that's happened in the last 50 days, Israelis and Palestinians remain conjoined twins. But do you think the people in Gaza who've been battered and killed, whose homes have been destroyed, who've had no water, electricity, and food for almost 2 months, would they share the feeling that Israelis are their conjoined twins? They've suffered at the hands of those Israelis. Will they still look upon them as conjoined twins? Or are you a lonely voice?
No, I am not a lonely voice, but it's important what you mentioned. It's not about the Gazan people alone. It's about the Palestinian, and this is the mistake. We describe it. You mentioned the Israelis and the Gazans. The Gazans are part of a Palestinian nation. They are Palestinian people. What is happening in the West Bank? We want to bring the issue about the Palestinian people. When you speak about peace, freedom, dignity, and equality between Israelis and Palestinians, not about Gazans alone, about the Palestinian people who are suffering, oppressed, occupied, and we want them to be free. So I am sure Palestinians, they have the resilience, they have the determination to keep moving forward, as I kept moving forward, but we need the world to take responsibility to make a change in the environment, to equalize between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Once we equalize, the Palestinians, they have the determination to move forward side by side.
You said a very important thing, Dr. Abuelaish. You said we need the world, the international community to help us move forward. How important is it that Israel's European allies, more importantly of all, Israel's American ally, should push Israel in the direction that you want to take the two people? Because at the moment, the Western countries are siding with Israel. They're not really siding with the Palestinians. How important is it that you should have their support in bringing the two countries together for peace, for harmony, for freedom, for rights, and for equality? How critical is the role of the West?
The West is important, but we want them to stand by what is just and what is right, not to be biased, indifferent, and complicit about what is happening. Who created the Israeli problem and the Jewish problem? It was created in the West, in Europe, and we as Palestinians, we are paying the major price of that. Even they have a clean hand from it. The days of colonization and the slavery are gone. So they are adding fuel to the fire by supporting Israel. Unconditional support. I can support you for what you are doing if you are doing the right thing. But if I care about you, if you are doing something wrong, I should prevent you from doing it. That's why we live in bias. We live in a biased world, and that's why we live in a discordant world, because it's, selective. We speak about human rights. We speak about international law. We speak about justice in a biased, selective approach. That's why the people, they lost faith in the international community, in particular, the Western leadership.
Yours is a very powerful voice speaking to the Western leadership, but how confident are you that you can change their mind, that you can change the way they think? The reason I ask is that for 75 years, the problem between the Israelis and the Palestinians has continued and got steadily worse because the West has continued to side with Israel, because the West has ignored the history that lies behind the problem, which is 100 years old. How confident are you today that they will change their attitude and help bring the two people together?
Yeah, it's important. You see what is happening in the Middle East. It crosses barriers. It across the barriers, even what happened after October 7 until now, where they were complicit, even indifferent before. Now they started to wake up. You see the divide within each of the European countries, the demonstrations, the public and the political leadership. So that's what raised the awareness. There's increased awareness on daily basis. In the States, you see the demonstrations in the States, in UK, in every European countries. So we don't want the conflict. They have a stake in it. So ending the conflict, between Palestine and Israel, they will benefit from it, not to transmit and to cross the barrier to affect their countries with the divide and lack of stability and to have the conflict within Western countries. So I am sure now they started, this is an alarm. The bell rings to them. Take care. If you continue to be indifferent, biased, and complicit about what is happening, the fire is approaching you.
We're coming to the end of this interview, but there are two questions I must put to you. What is your personal ideal vision for the future? Is it two separate states living in peace and harmony side by side? Or are you actually hoping for one state where Israelis and Palestinians, Jews and Muslims have equal rights and equal privileges and live together, as you said, as conjoined twins?
So this question should be directed to the Israelis, to the occupier. We accepted to have a two-state solution as Palestinians. Ask the Israeli leadership, based on the international resolution, what would you like? Ask the occupier. I don't have the choice. You ask me a question that I can't choose. If you ask me, I would love to have our state, independent, a free state, based on the international resolutions, as 67 borders, East Jerusalem as the capital of Palestine, with the right of the return to find a satisfactory solution. Does the Israeli government accept this or not? In spite of that, you see what is happening with the two-state solution. The Israeli government, they destroyed it. They killed it with the expansion of the settlements, with the daily announcement. There will never be a Palestinian state, no for 67 borders, no for East Jerusalem. So we need, that's what is needed from the international community, to put pressure on Israel to save Israel from its self-destructive act. What they are doing is destructive to them and to the Palestinians. So we need to save them by putting an end to the Palestinian Israeli occupation in a solid way, in a peaceful way, based on the international resolutions. And we accept any international resolution. Does Israel accept that or not? They don't. So we need the pressure from the international community to force Israel to save them and to live in peace side by side with the Palestinians.
Finally, Dr. Abuelaish, do you have a message for Benjamin Netanyahu? And perhaps more importantly, do you have a message for the Israeli people, for the ordinary Israeli people, who I'm sure also want peace and harmony? Do you have a message for both, for Netanyahu and for the Israeli people?
I want to say to every political leader in Israel, what legacy do they want to leave behind? The legacy they want to leave behind, a human legacy, to humanize, not to politicize, and to understand that military means will never put an end. And also to understand that the Israeli safety, security, freedom, life, future, and independence is linked and dependent on the Palestinian safety, security, freedom, and the future. They are not safe as long as Palestinians are not. They are not free as long as the Palestinians are not. It's time to acknowledge that this can be solved with goodwill. And even when they say about the land, it's a small house can fit for 100 of friends, but can't fit for two fighters, and to focus on the commonalities between us. And you mentioned about Palestinian Muslims. Palestine used to be for Muslims, for Jewish, for Christians, for Druze, for all. So let us all discover our humanity and to live side by side or together as people.
My last question, because I think it's important. Do you think the Israeli people, ordinary Israeli people, will share your views and thinking? Will they welcome and respond to your call for peace, harmony, equality, freedom, rights, and justice for both?
I ask them also, I say to them, what do you want for your child? To accept it for the Palestinian child, to see your humanity and in other side. And that's, I am sure, I can't generalize in life. I never generalize. Maybe now the emotions are high, but once they reflect and sit with themselves to ask themselves, to treat others, as I would like to be treated. And that's the guarantee for a safe and sustainable relationship between Palestinians and Israelis. And also, there is a lot of commonalities between us. Always, sometimes we think we are different, but we are not different. These mental barriers we created, we need to overcome mental, psychological barriers. Let us sit together to discover the humanities and the commonalities between us.
Dr. Abuelaish, thank you very much for allowing me to talk to you about moments in your life that have been dreadful and that you would rather never have to speak about and would prefer to forget. I'm grateful that you shared them with us despite the obvious pain it would have caused. And thank you also for sharing with us the mission that you have, which I think is laudable, to bring the people together with justice, peace, equality, and harmony. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much. My mission will continue to fight against hatred, against discrimination, for a human message, and also for women and women's education, because this world can be stable, sustainable without women, women's education, role, and opportunities.
Thank you very much indeed, Doctor. Take care.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you. Be well.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch The Interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.